I will just cover it quite like somewhat concisely. Of course, we get Visions of Eternity, Access, and no story. I will not go into deep thing here. Then we get more elite specs, 9 new elite specs, makes sense. There were some big changes to some of them. That's most of the video here, most of the blog post. I will cover that. And we will get also some homesteads. You get access to the Commosus Isle, probably butcher that name. But yeah, you will get access to that. But, big but here, you have to have Chance Wilds to get there. You cannot get this with only Visions of Eternity. Okay, I guess that's how it goes. But you now can use decoration templates, which is a huge, like, immense feature for people that enjoy homesteads and decorating. I think that's amazing that you can load build or decoration templates, however they are called, can save it, switch around, change to the Visions of Eternity, the homestead, or back to Chance Wilds. Really cool. A lot of improvements here for homestead enjoyers. Absolutely cool. Then we have Skimmer. I just released a video about the Skimmer and showcasing all the masteries, what they are about, so be sure to check that one out if you want to know more about it. I love the Skimmer, I can tell you that. It's probably my favorite mount now overall. It's really fun to use, really like fitting to the new map, but also very strong, like what it can do. It's just awesome. I really like it. So if you want to know more about it and the masteries and stuff, be sure to check out the video. I will not go into detail here. And then we get some more story, I guess, nothing in particular. Then we get Wizard's World update. They obviously added new special objectives and more like rewards, skins and stuff like that. Jackal skin is in there. And we get new daily and weekly objectives, which is quite interesting because they never did that as far as I remember. Now we get more weekly and daily objectives to do. Hopefully they are not too bad and too annoying to get, but I think that's a good thing, a little bit more cycling through and not always having like to, I don't know, win one PvP match, and that's the only daily that you will ever get for the rest of time. That's a little bit different now, at least. Okay, interesting. And then we have some like changes to like increase the fidelity of dynamic shadows. That's exactly what we made the blog post. Really interesting, better graphics, I guess. We also have a shadow toggle here for the graphics menu. That's cool. And just some other things. Quite nice. And now I guess we get into the interesting parts with some rewards. I would say like Shrimp now display proper animations when killed is interesting, but okay. We get now an Infinite Mist Omni Potion that you can has a little bit of a different name because it will also apply its effects to party members if used inside the Fractal of the Mist. That's crazy. We will have to see how that actually looks like. I have to talk like about this collection feature and stuff. I will obviously try it out and see how it works. But that's interesting. Very interesting that they went with this. So you can buff up your allies without having them have the potion. That's very interesting. Very interesting to me, absolutely. We will have to see if that's like the new meta or if that's just something for new players. Yeah, like I mentioned, Aquapeda, new legendary. Yes, very good, very good. We get a new legendary spear as well. And 6 new relics. I mentioned it earlier here on stream, but I will also talk about it in a video coming up, or that you can check out here. So a lot of cool things, I would say, with the relics. Really, really strong relics. I mentioned it quite long, and I think 2 of them like absolutely broken. Probably best in slot for a lot of builds. Really fun. And then let's talk about the profession skills. So let's start with Elementalist. I already showed Evoker. Really, really strong. You get now a buff depending on what like familiar you have. Might gives you burning, gives you might. You get allies some heal when you get them region. Really strong. Then you get more ferocity. Okay, not that exciting when you have the hair equipped and gain protection when disable an enemy. That were all things that existed before, but before it was a trait. Now it's like baseline. Really strong. Just in general, the traits really good. I will cover the traits here in my specific builds because they are really good. I think Evoker gets some really good changes to the traits in general. I will just highlight the best ones here, in my opinion, because I think personally like the Familiar's Blessing is awesome. This grants now quickness for the fox and the hare. So if you are fire and air specialized, you get quickness. If you're earth or water, you get alacrity. Really cool, really flexible now, way better than, for example, before, and really cool idea. Like Chronomancer, somewhat same of the flexibility. And the Grandmaster is actually quite interesting. They changed quite a lot of these traits and how it works, and some damage multipliers and stuff like that. Not going too deep here, but in general, it seems like it's very good. And also, they buffed a lot of the utility skills. I feel like they seem way better to use. I would specifically say that they were somewhat underperforming in the beta, and now they are somewhere where I would say this is a skill that you actually want to use. Like, really good. For example, Todd's Fortitude now grants protection to nearby allies. This is really potent. Like, you can now provide protection permanently with this skill here. Almost. It's really, really good. Really cool. Makes a lot of sense. And you can also grant resistance to nearby allies when you specialize in Earth. Quite cool. Quite cool. A lot of interesting changes. Then I have Engineer. I mean, they just nerfed a lot of stuff. I would have guessed that Amalgam was really, really overperforming in damage. They just nerfed a lot of damage. Yeah. And they changed Evolve to be a little bit better in PvE. Makes sense. It was a little bit worse there. In general, Amalgam did not receive a lot of changes in terms of like gameplay mechanics changes. But I would say I'm quite happy with what they did because it's now not as broken anymore. Probably still broken, don't get me wrong. But way more balanced. And the important part actually for Amalgam is, I would say, only like the last few here. So you cannot like get a lot of like different boons to your allies anymore without having the new Genes trait, which is really, really strong because it grants boons to allies when you use a morph skill, and you grant alacrity in PvE when you use a morph skill in general, plus a boon depending on what kind of morph skill you used. Really, really strong. In competitive modes, it's obviously not alacrity, but something else. And in general, Amalgam looks like a very strong alacrity DPS support as well. Maybe you can even play as a healer. In general, a lot of good changes. Amalgam definitely one of the ones that got the least big changes, just some changes in terms of numbers. Yeah, we will have to see how it plays out. More on that in future content and hopefully some cool builds. They changed a lot for Luminary. It's quite hard to cover it all here, to be honest, because you have to see it in game. But it's now way less punishing to use the Shroud, and just you can like stay in Shroud way longer without being punished for it. That's good. And you get like Justice, gives now weakness. It's really cool. You get some healing and light aura. You get some the staff skills improved if you use the Radiant Resolve. It's really cool that you can use your Radiant Justice, Radiant Resolve, Radiant Courage to buff up your next time you use your attacks. It's quite in the corresponding attack that is. So the shield, for example, with the courage, or the justice with the hammer. That's really cool. I like this design a lot. It's way more active. It feels way more like natural to use and not just like dip in, dip out. And nothing gets like value anymore. I think that's really cool. Way better. Of course, some numbers changes as well. And looks way more fun to play. And I will theory craft a lot about this, especially like for some kind of like bruiser or hybrid support or something like that. I can definitely see that one working. And yeah, definitely a good one. And nothing too crazy either, just like a small change to how the profession mechanics works, or somewhat small, not crazy big at least. And that is what it needed. Nothing like crazy, it just makes it way better. I liked it. Okay, let's talk about Mesmer. Troubadour got a lot of changes. I was not expecting it, to be honest. They changed quite a lot. You now get Distortion baseline while you channel the 4th Shatter skill. This is crazy because before you had to take a trade, now it's baseline, making your trades way more flexible, which is good. They buffed some stuff with the tails. In general, it's good because the tails were good, but not crazy. They generally like had some changes to it, nothing too crazy. Mostly they changed how the profession mechanic worked again. You get the passive for the master tier here from a minor trade. For each instrument playing, you get a unique bonus. The lute increases the outgoing damage and the healing. The flute increases the endurance regeneration. The drum increases movement speed, and the harp heals nearby allies every second. This is really good. This is really good. So I want to mention this and really say this. This is a change I did not see coming, because this now gives you a unique buff to heal Mesmer that you didn't have before. You can increase passive, endurance regen, outgoing damage, movement speed, stuff like that, which you didn't have before. And this is really, really cool. And this is really strong because you can help with some of the traits, can actually like improve that even further. This is really cool. And you have even traits like Lively Loot and Crescendo that apply boons to affected allies as well. Really, really strong, really fun. I have to theorycraft a lot around this, how that works, if that works a lot in group scenarios as well, or if that's like just a solo build. But either way, Troubadour seems like full DPS, Conduit or power. Seems like a boon DPS in PvE as a full support. In competitive modes, you could probably play all of them as well to some extent. It's crazy. And definitely probably the most flexible spec of all of them. I have to theorycraft more about this, but definitely makes the spec like way more interesting to me now with the changes that they made here. So that you have like traits that are actually impactful. It's really good. They sadly removed one of the ones that I enjoyed a lot, which means that you healed when applying Torment or Confusion while the flute is playing. This is no longer here. It now reduces the cooldown of Flustering Flute when you dodge. That's interesting. Doesn't have to do anything with this trait before, but I guess it's interesting nonetheless, because when you dodge, so you can use Energy Sigil, the passive Endurance regeneration here to get more cooldown reduction of your Flustering Flute. I guess. Interesting. Interesting for sure. Love Song seems like a good change. It's not a boon that you can remove, it seems. Yeah, exactly. This is crazy. It causes your Harmonious Harp distortion to last long and reduces incoming strike damage from nearby enemies while Harp is playing. It's not a boon, so it cannot be removed. So it's just a damage reduction that you can get. They previously went quite crazy on removing every unique buff on any class. But now with Luminary and now with Troubadour, they have unique buffs again. So very interesting, and I think that's cool because I like unique buffs that makes unique like gameplay mechanics happen. And that's good. I think that's quite fun. Let's see how it works out, if that's annoying to play against in competitive modes, but for now I'm happy with the changes for sure. Let's talk about Ritualist quickly. Ritualist doesn't get that many changes. They buffed some of the things with like the weapon spells, and most importantly, they changed a little bit about how the spirits work, so they can now use an active attack. Like, this is quite good, because before they were quite passive. They used their one attack and that's it. Now they use an active attack instead, which is very, very potent. Preservation creates a barrier that destroys protectors, really strong. Then Wanderlust gives a big projectile that dazes, and Anguish just more damage. In general, like, didn't change Ritualist in terms of design, but I think the potency of Ritualist is now way better, and it was already really good in competitive mode, so we'll have to see how it works. I think in PvE it was a little bit lacking, and I think that helps it, but we will have to see. We will have to see more on that in the future. In general, I don't have too much to say about Ritualist. I like those changes. We will have to see how it works in the end, how it turns out. So, Ranger. Galeshot is a spec that I would say is the closest to perfect in the beta from all the specs. And you can see that, because all of the changes here are just like small changes, like making a numbers change. It looks more like a normal balance patch, not a change that you would expect after the beta. But the stuff that they change is really good. So for example, you get more wind force. You get a trait that also gives you an arrow, yeah, or more arrows, yeah. You get more distance on the leap skill, yeah. In general, it is way more like the convenience, the quality of life is higher. Higher range here. Hawkeye is like a little bit higher damage increased, so that it makes it actually sense to build it up and not just waste it. And in general, I think the changes here, not too insane, but really, really fun, really good spec before the changes, and after that probably even better. They reduced some power coefficiency in PvE of this really fun skill Mistral, so it's not as broken as before. You will still use it, don't worry. It's this like dome that you put down that causes all your multi-hit skills, that projectiles that you push through to hit another time. This will be still useful. It's still very good. And in general, they have really like just some number changes. Nothing too crazy, but really good. And here, this is also a very like underestimated trait. You have now piercing, which makes you cleaving way easier. Beforehand, that was actually quite annoying if you wanted to hit a target and there's another target in between that could body block. Now it's not possible anymore if you have lead event. That's good, makes sense. It's really good, and it was a fun trait before, and now it's a trait that you actually want to take on Galeshot. That's good. I think Galeshot, good spot. Need to see what they did to improve Revenant. Oh yes, now we talk about Revenant. Look at this. By far the biggest release note is for Conduit. Conduit got like a complete rework. okay, I don't want to like exaggerate too much. It's not a complete rework. You still have the affinity, you still have like the Rasa legend, but it feels now way more like, what can I say, in-depth. It has way more mechanics that feel like an elite spec rather than just like a core Revenant. You have now F2 skill and F3 skill. The F2 skill is release potential. And release potential depends on the legend that you have equipped. And it is a specific attack that depends on the legend and is also somewhat like feeling like the legend. So for example, Legendary Assassin stance removes wounds. Legendary stance applies bleeding and stuff like that. It's really fun and I would say quite potent effects. Not like exciting effects that are like crazy unique, but makes sense. And then you have your F3 skill, which is Cosmic Wisdom. So it was shifted from F2 to F3, while also being somewhat different. So now has a 7-second cooldown by default, or lasts 7 seconds by default, and does not increase the duration further. And you get some more buffs from it. And you automatically switch forms when you invoke a different legends. That's also good. And in general, you have different forms here. So they don't increase your attributes anymore, but they will empower your legendaries and tower skills, demon stance, depending on the stance that you're in. They will empower your attacks. That's really cool. So for example, if you Form of the Mesmer will have reduced energy cost for the legendary stance, but they have the increased cooldown. That's really good because, for example, you have the legendary demon stance elite skill that is not a cooldown based skill. Then you have, for example, impossible odds. You get some really nice daggers that you shoot at the enemy while you channel it or use a legendary assassin stance skill. So it's really potent attacks that you get from the Cosmic Wisdom when you use it. And that is really altering your playstyle. So for example, for the monk, you get the legendary centaur stance skill empowered. And they do not consume the tranquil effect. That means that you can permanently use the empowered centaur stance skill. So it actually really power creeps how the core legend works. I think this is a really good design, really fun, really interesting. We will have to see if it's making it like an absolutely broken build or if it's like just still somewhat mediocre but more fun to play. I think that's also okay. I think it will not be played as a support, at least in PvE. That seems unlikely, but because you don't get any boons. But definitely way more interesting than before and way more fun to play. I can tell you that much. And in general, just some number adjustments. And they also did some really crazy things, I have to say, because they changed, where is it? Here, Kinetic Insight. This trait now reduces the cooldown of release potential skills and increases the effectiveness of those skills. So that means that you can actually like increase the effectiveness of your release potential, which is the thing that increases your attack. It's really, really good. It's really, really fun. And it will make them even more potent than before. So the release potential skills, like removing wounds, getting barrier and stuff, they will be even better if you have this trait. Quite fun. And then you have some really, really cool trait. Where is it here? Exactly, Enhanced Embodiment. This trait reduces the recharge of invoking legends in combat and extends the duration of Cosmic Wisdom when you invoke a legend. This is crazy. This is like the only class in the game that can reduce its weapon swap without a relic is Warrior. And now we have Revenant being the second class that can reduce its weapon swap, so to say. You have now the reduced recharge of legend swap with this trait, which is really fun. We can like theory craft around this quite a lot. And in general, it also extends the duration of Cosmic Wisdom, which, don't forget, is really potent because it empowers your attacks from any like legend that you have equipped. So really cool traits, really, really fun. And a lot of interesting ideas. Also, Perpetual Wisdom got reworked completely. While this trait is active, Cosmic Wisdom is always activated, but your passive energy in a generation is reduced. So that means that you have always those empowered skills of your core legends or Rasa legend, but you get one less pip generated. That's cool. I think in general, it's like a lot of fun theory crafting around. But the only thing that I still have to criticize here is that we're missing a boon that we provide, like quickness or alacrity to our allies. That's still missing. But other than that, I think it's like quite good. One of the best specs actually in the theory crafting department because so much is going on here. You can play with all the core legends and theory craft like crazy. I like it. Yeah, absolutely. So let me know your takes if you agree with the Conduit changes or if you think that's not good. Either way, that's what we got for now. Let's go next to Antiquary. Antiquary got some good changes, I have to say. You can no longer you can use grid swipe, so your steal, without a target, which is really good. And you will always get artifacts, which was one of the biggest issues in competitive modes, because if your opponent evades, blocks, or is not targeted, you could not get any artifacts. And that's the most important thing about this. So you will be able to get your things that are actually improving your build or making your build work in the first place all the time. That's good. They obviously changed some of the artifacts around. I will not go into detail here, but in general they are really, really potent, especially because they all get a temporary buff after that. Some of them like makes, for example, your next utility slot. Utility skill has reduced cooldown. You have, for example, your inflict torment on enemies that it strikes. You will also get some kind of like access to stealth attacks, depending on what kind of skill you used for the next 2 seconds, even without being in stealth. They have really potent effects. So the artifacts are way better now and way more unique than just like damage around you. That's it. And then they changed some stuff around with the traits. This is really fun. So whenever you use an artifact, you recharge your grid swipe. That's really cool. Obviously depending on the game mode, but it's really, really good. Then they have like changes to some damage application and stuff that you get, for example, yeah, just more artifacts, synergies here. And you can also now get boons to your allies, so you can provide alacrity to your allies with offensive artifacts, and you can get some might and fury in PvP and World vs. World. I guess that's okay, but not crazy. It's more like a PvE trade, I would say. And defensive artifacts now grant region and protection to allies in all modes. This is really good, because now you can actually play this as a boon support. Maybe if you... No, I think it's like a healer, seems unlikely, but I would say as a boon support, alacrity support, DPS, that seems quite potent. We will see if that's a fun spec to play that, or if it's quite annoying to get, but I think personally that seems like what it needed. Something of like changes, making it more unique and more usable, while also being like more buffed a bit. I think Antiquary is definitely seeming like a very good spec now, at least in PvE. We will see if it's in PvP decent as well. Nothing too crazy, just buffs mostly, making it a bit more usable, gives some more boons, gives some shorter cooldowns, and some more just usefulness, while also nerfing some stuff that is really, really strong in PvE, in World vs. World specifically, because it was really good there, and even in PvP as well. I think a lot of stuff is now way more active. For example, it fixed a lot of the utility skills are more useful, because they were a little bit lackluster. It was more about the meditation, how is it called? The chants and stuff like that. But now that's better. And your traits are better. You can see super speed when activated, you remove conditions when activated. That's just like you make your chants more potent with your traits, and that's good, because they were very passive and the traits did not change that much of them. Now they are way more potent, I would say. That's good. And you also have now a power damage trait in there. We will have to see how much damage it does. Paragon as a full DPS, but now it gets a huge damage multiplier from using your chance. That's good. We will have to see. And in general, I would say nothing too crazy, where you would say like crazy rework like Conduit, but I expect it to be a quite strong spec in all game modes. Mostly for the support role, but maybe even as a full DPS. And they changed some of the duration of quickness and alacrity, which makes it, especially the alacrity in PvE, doesn't seem like much, but that makes it way easier to upkeep, which was not that hard in the first place, but now you're way more like proactive and don't have to like always spam your buttons to a rigid rotation. Now you are a little bit like, I can use this to actually heal my allies, or can use this to provide stability without being forced to always spam your chants, which is good. In general, I like it. Good changes. Nothing too crazy though. In general, I would say, especially Conduit, probably Antiquary, and Troubadour, Luminary, and probably Evoker. Those specs are the biggest changes, but that doesn't mean they are the biggest winners. They changed the most. from that tab because probably they needed it the most, but Amalgam, Galeshot, and what was the last one? Ritualist. And yeah, those are probably the ones that did not change too much, but they were already in a somewhat decent spot. So overall, I'm quite happy with this, I would say.